Hey, if you found your way here after watching the first few videos about the value and marketability of a college degree, welcome back. If you're new, you will know that our project is to create the most value possible for college students, particularly community college students, so that they both have an insanely valuable experience in college, but also they end up with a degree that's marketable. And really what that means is a transcript that's marketable. And the goal that I established in some other videos, which I'll link to in case you want to watch them, is that aspire to make the Dean's List. And if you do, then the effort, the experience, the work that you put in will serve as really great training that will absolutely be of value to you in some way, shape, or form. But then also it'll guarantee that your degree, along with the transcript that indicates your degree, will be more marketable than the average one. So you won't be stuck in a position of wondering, why did I get this degree that I can't get a job or I can't get into graduate school or is useless to me? Today, I'm going to tell you about a really important step in trying to get on that super success train that we're all aboard, which is registering for classes. And to do it, I'm going to do three things. First, really quickly, I'm going to go over the practical and logistical stuff that in general is required. Next, I'm going to talk about the biggest mistake, the single head and shoulders above the rest, number one with a bullet mistake that I see students making when they're registering. And then some general ideas about what thoughtful registration for you might look like and what you might want to consider. Okay, first, you're going to have to know how to do it. The logistics of it, the practical stuff. And the practical stuff with regard to applying and registering at a community college might be a little different than if you are going to a four-year, but they all have the same elements, they just happen a little differently. So I'm focused on a community college, which in general you will apply. You'll have to apply, even if it's an open access institution. You'll have to get admitted, which will likely happen. And you will then have to provide some financial information for financial aid. You're going to have to probably take some placement tests or produce a transcript that says you don't need the placement tests. You'll likely have to talk to an advisor. You might have to go to a required orientation, and there might be another counseling, orientation, discussion, meeting sort of thing you might be required to attend. That sounds about right for almost all of the community college sorts of registration processes I've looked at, onboarding. And it's not terribly daunting, but oftentimes there might be some glitches in a website or someone might not get back to you as quickly as they can. What I can tell you is that everybody I've ever met, just about everybody I've ever met who's involved in those processes at any community college, whether it's an advisor, an administrator, a staff member, a counselor, someone working in financial aid, they all really do want to help you. And a lot of them are facing kind of institutional or structural obstacles that aren't always their fault. So give them the benefit of the doubt and try not to get too mad at them and know that they're doing their best to help you. Second, the number one mistake, the biggest mistake that I see students make with regard to registration, hands down, no questions asked, no argument, is I see students registering for more classes than they're capable or willing or have the resources or have the time to do well. Sometimes that number is students registering for 21 credits when they could handle 18. Or other times it's students registering for 1 3-credit class when really they shouldn't be registering for any. They have too much going on right now. So my number one mistake that I want you to know about so you can avoid is don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't register for more classes than you really think you can really do really well. And that brings us nicely to 3. How are you going to avoid making that mistake? Well, the first thing you're going to have to do is figure out what is your goal. What are your purposes? Why are you going to school? Really why? Be honest with yourself. Second you're going to have to figure out, knowing yourself, knowing your habits, knowing your academic history, what do you think you're really capable of? And lastly, it's just going to take a little bit of research and understanding. So first off, what's your goal? If you're just wanting to take classes and you have limitless resources, limitless funds, and it doesn't matter if you pass classes because you're independently wealthy and you're going to be fine no matter what, do whatever you want. Awesome. No worries. If you really want to get the most out of the classes, both in terms of how well you learn stuff, the skills you develop, and the value towards your transcript and your degree, if that's part of your goal, then you really have to reflect and say, wait a second, what's my situation? Am I working 2 jobs? Do I have 3 kids? Do I only have a very limited window of opportunity to study? Am I good at getting up early in the morning? Do I work the night shift every night? Am I a server? Am I in the service industry and I'm working on bar time and I don't get home till 3 a.m., 4 a.m.? What's my schedule? Am I really that committed to this? Those are all questions you're going to have to ask yourself and really answer honestly for yourself. And if the answer to those questions is, I don't really know, that's great. That's wonderful. I can give you kind of a rule of thumb and a guideline to follow. And that rule of thumb and guideline is, we want to have an experience as valuable as the college experience was in 1965 when people got out with a degree. The average person got out with a degree and could get a job with that degree because their experience was valuable and the degree reflected a valuable experience. How are you going to do that? Well, you're going to start by at least carving out of your schedule at least 5 or 6 hours a week outside of class for every 3 credit class that you register for. Do not register for a class if you don't have at least 5 or 6 hours outside of class dedicated to study just for that class. That means if it's an online class, it's going to have to be 8 or 9 hours because the 3 hours you'd be meeting face-to-face are going to be taken up with online activities, screencasts, discussion board posts. Now, will every course you take require that amount of time to get 100% in? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I have seen some online courses in particular where people can get A's. Actually, and the student was the one who alerted me to this. I mentioned it in another video. She said she wasn't going to take any courses that she couldn't, online courses that she couldn't complete in the first 2 weekends of the semester. And there were a bunch of them she could take and get A's in. You don't want that because that's not going to be a valuable course. But if you get that course, you may end up putting in 5 or 6 hours outside of class on that topic because you want to make sure you're prepared. You want to make sure that you're ready for whatever course that's a prerequisite for so you don't get to upper division classes and fail. Will you have to every week? Of course not. But have that chunk of time carved out in your schedule so that you know you have it. So you're going to need 10, 15, 20 hours of time where you're like, I can study for this 15, 20 hours a week for my 9 or 12 credits worth of class. If you cannot do that, take fewer classes. If you can't do that at all, don't take any classes right now. Just don't. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And there's very little value to taking a bunch of classes poorly and not finishing them. So we have that rule of thumb, but then there's some other things that are going to go into it. My last little bit of research you're going to do. Go to Course Hero and Rate My Professor and find out about the classes you're considering registering for. If your school publishes student evaluations of the teachers, which every school should do, and those that don't are kind of a little bit chicken shit, or just don't have the infrastructure for it. That's another reason some don't. Figure out how hard it's going to be. Figure out if you think you're really going to get along with that teacher. Make sure that if you don't like the class in the first week before the drop deadline, you drop it and find another section. That's on you, not on them. It's never the teacher's fault. If they show you what's up in the first week and you stay in that class, that is on you, and you. Now, if they totally go crazy and like turn into someone else after the first 10 days, I've never seen that happen, but that's on them. Talk to students you know about the teacher, the instructor, the course. Go online and find out how hard it is. If it's your first semester back in school in like 10 years and you're like, oh, you know what I think I'm going to take? Organic chemistry and accounting. Don't do that. I haven't looked at an organic chemistry or a managerial accounting shell in a while. Actually, I looked at a couple of managerial accounting syllabi last semester, but I haven't looked at an organic chemistry one. But I know those two classes can be insanely hard depending on who's teaching them. Don't take them both at the same time. So really, really think about what your specific goals are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, what you're there for. Really do some research and reflection and think about, am I willing to do this? And go as deep as thinking, do I really want to get up? Am I really going to get up every day for an 8 a.m. class? The easiest way to avoid blowing off your 8 a.m. class because you oversleep is to not take an 8 a.m. class. Think about everything you can, figure out if you can carve out that time to do it well, and then make your decisions. Make sure you check out all the logistics that are required for your institution. You go through all of it. Really talk to the advisors and the people who are there to help you. And remember that a lot of the complications and obstacles you might face aren't their fault, so try not to get too mad at them. And lastly, really figure out what you can handle and really reflect. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? How can I do it really well? And how much can I take? How many courses can I take? How many credits is reasonable for me? And use that 5 hours for every 3 credit class as a minimum requirement. Make it 8 hours if it's an online class. And I can guarantee you, you will avoid being a student who I refer to as one of those students who makes the biggest mistakes. I hope that helps. If you have comments, questions, concerns, you know where to put them. I hope all is well. Thank you for the time. Bye.